Auto loan approvals are down and repossessions are up. Americans are being bled out. We're suffocating. We're suffocating with all this debt right now. $82,159 is the discounted price on this particular Badlands example. And do you remember when buying a used vehicle meant saving a ton of money by comparison to buying new? Not anymore. $124,000 today in 2025 is equivalent to $100,000 in 2020. Your spending power is just no longer there, and the value of the dollar is diminishing by the day. Vehicle manufacturers outsourcing their production to cheaper labor countries like Mexico, and at the same time hiking up price tags substantially over previous generations. Dealers are not selling their new inventory because people can't justify trading in right now. They're upside down on their loans. The Ford Bronco Sport is built out of Mexico. The engines for the Ford Ranger in particular, built out of Mexico. So just a lot of outsourcing to try to save money. They don't want you to pop the hood and work on your vehicle anymore. They want you to take it to the dealership. They're gonna try to hike up the price tag of the used example just slightly, enough to make up for their losses in their lack of new vehicle sales. 1 out of 4 individuals with an auto loan out right now currently has a negative equity on it. That negative equity is right around $7,500, $7,600. Cost of raw materials, the cost of aluminum, the cost of steel. The very clear reason as to why vehicles now cost a lot is thanks to vehicles like this. I mean, thanks to the F-150 Lightning, thanks to the whole entire electric vehicle segment, price increases wouldn't be so bad if wages and salaries actually kept up with it. But that's not the case. The reality is most Americans, truly, most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. YouTube, Untamed here, we often talk about the astronomical price tags on vehicles today, but we really don't talk about why. How did we get here? Why are these price tags so high? In today's video, I'm gonna explain the many reasons as to how we got to this point, so stick with me. You know, it wasn't all that long ago where you can go buy a new vehicle for easily $30,000 or less, a new vehicle. Nowadays, well, get ready to buck up a lot more than that. The average new vehicle purchase price here in Q1 2025 was just under $49,000. The average new vehicle monthly payment in Q1 is $745 per month. If you bought a truck, well, get ready to buck up for it. The average new truck sale price in Q1 2025 was just over $64,000. Over half of the auto loans out right now for a new truck are over $1,000 per month. To be fair, that $64,000 price tag includes all trucks. We're talking mid-size, full-size, heavy-duty, diesel trucks, you name it. 64 grand is the average price. And just for reference, let me show you just a couple examples here. This, of course, is the EV F-150 Lightning. But get a load of this. Over $81,000 for this F-150 Lightning here. Absolutely insane. Just picking another F-150 at random. This is a F-150 XLT, not even a top trimmed example here, not a King Ranch, not a Platinum or Limited, but here you have it, $63,100. This right here is the average, okay? And you don't even get a spray-in bed liner in this one, but $63,000. Right here is the average purchase price about for a new truck today. It's not even a top trim. Heck, if you're gonna buy a mid-sized truck today, get ready to buck up over $50,000. Here behind me, I have perhaps the most sparse down, bare bones example of a Ford Ranger STX, and even the price tag on this one, with cloth interior, pretty bare bones, $39,000, just under it. And right next to it is the most affordable Ford Maverick that I have ever seen in person. This was intended to be the $20,000 pickup. You remember when Ford was saying that? The $20,000 truck that any American can afford and come out and buy. But nope, this is the most affordable, steely wheels, XL, front wheel drive, not even all wheel drive, four wheel drive, just under $30,000. Hopefully you can see it there. Absolutely insane that this is truly the most affordable Ford Maverick that you can buy. If you have a large family like mine and you need a full-size SUV, forget about it. Forget about it. This is a new 2025 Ford Expedition Platinum. Look at that. Over $80,000 has become our new reality for these things. They look great. They're awesome vehicles, but man, this should be 55 grand tops. I mentioned it on the channel before, but I think it's a very important note to mention in this video. $124,000 today in 2025 is equivalent to $100,000 in 2020. Your spending power is just no longer there, and the value of the dollar is diminishing by the day. Behind me here is a F-350 King Ranch, a Ford F-350 Super Duty King Ranch. Price tag on this is $103,000 and some change. Really, back in 2020, by equivalency, it should have been about 80 grand. And well, you guessed it, all without a spray-in bed liner. And I want to be extremely fair in this video. This is the most affordable Super Duty that you can buy on this particular lot. It is a F-250 STX trimmed example. And well, the price tag, $62,000 for it. This one is not sporting a diesel. It is sporting the 7.3 liter naturally aspirated V8 instead. But let's face it, most people who are coming out to buy a Super Duty are probably going to be buying this one, kind of a mid-tier trimmed Lariat here, mid to upper trim Lariat. But look at that. $86,665. Looks like somebody got a look at the price tag and said, no thanks. Right now, auto loan approvals are down and repossessions are up. Just this last year, we've seen 21% of all auto loans that are applied for being denied. And when it comes to vehicle repossessions, we've seen a stark increase over the last 2 years. Let me paint a picture for you. We're expecting to have 1.8 million vehicles repossessed here in 2025. That's compared to about 1.73 million vehicles that were repossessed in 2024. That was a huge increase, an unprecedented increase from the previous year in 2023, where we saw about 1.5 million vehicles that were repossessed. Let's face it, we live in a TikTok generation here where we're constantly trying to keep up with what we see online, and a large part of that comes with our valuables, our things, our materialistic things, and that oftentimes is our vehicles. People are trying to keep up with what they see, not just from their neighbor now, but what they see on TikTok, what they see on YouTube, and that's the unfortunate truth. Generally speaking, throughout the last 3 to 4 decades within the United States, Americans have become notorious for trading in their vehicle for a new vehicle every 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years, that really has become the average for most Americans. But right now, what did we see? Last 3 to 5 years, most people were likely overcharged for their current vehicle. If they bought a vehicle throughout the last few years, they likely overpaid for it, right? I mean, due to supply restraints, chip shortages, blah, 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 a lot of people were getting raked over the coals on their new vehicle purchase, whether that was with a markup over MSRP, which we saw that all the time from so many greedy dealers, or they just ended up paying a premium close to MSRP on vehicles that generally came with a huge discount. So they overpaid for a vehicle, and well, it's been 3 to 5 years since then, since they bought. Now they're looking to trade in again, and now they're met with the harsh reality that they have a very high negative equity on their current vehicle. And now they can't really justify trading it in, and that's leading to having so much inventory unsold on dealership lots right now. Dealers are not selling their new inventory because people can't justify trading in right now. They're upside down on their loans. And well, when you see price tags like this on Ford Broncos, really it's no surprise. $82,159 is the discounted price on this particular Badlands example. No thanks. 1 out of 4 individuals with an auto loan out right now currently has a negative equity on it. That negative equity is right around $7,600, meaning they owe $7,500 more than what their vehicle is currently worth. So if they're going to trade in their vehicle for an $80,000 Bronco, well, that's going to quickly become an $87,000, $88,000 Bronco real fast. The harsh reality is it goes beyond the price tag now. It goes beyond that huge price tag on these vehicles. You're going to get hit with a protection plan, a protection package, or an extended warranty. That sales rep and finance rep in there are going to really push a ton of these packages on you that are going to inflate the ultimate sale price on these vehicles. But that becomes a catch-22 because banks are no longer just issuing loans out like candy anymore. When they see these inflated price tags on vehicles, they're not going to want to give you that loan. Never mind your auto insurance premium over doubling over the last 2.5 years. Let's not forget about that little piece of the equation. You are getting bled out every single month between the monthly payment on your vehicle, your insurance premium, the cost of your rent and mortgage going up, the cost of groceries going to the moon. Everything has just gotten completely out of touch with reality. One prime example, of course, is the cost of manufacturing has gotten far, far more than what it used to be. And that's largely thanks to the fact that we now stuff these vehicles with a ton of technology, creature comforts. They're just over complex at this point. Even their engines now, right? This is a Toyota Tacoma that has a 2.4 liter turbocharged 4-banger, hybridized 4-banger underneath the hood. This has become wildly complex and really too difficult for your average Joe and Jane to pop the hood and work on. And well, because of all the added technology in here, you're looking at a price tag of just under $54,000. And on top of it all, you see stuff like this, not just from Toyota, but vehicle manufacturers outsourcing their production to cheaper labor countries like Mexico, and at the same time hiking up price tags substantially over previous generations. It makes no sense. I think many of us can agree that the Toyota Tacoma, the Toyota Tundra, the new Sequoia, the new Land Cruiser are prime examples of us sacrificing reliability for all these creature comforts and technology and performance numbers. Generally speaking, most people who buy Toyota in particular are not interested in reading the brochure and bragging about their stats, right? Bragging about their horsepower and torque and their towing capacity. Sure, it's good, and it's always been good, but it doesn't need to be spectacular. What they're most worried about is, can they jump into their vehicle in any kind of weather, inclement weather, and will it start for them, no matter what, and will it last 250,000 miles plus? But not anymore. The whole affordability, reliability, and simplicity has been thrown out the window with Toyota in particular. Now, even a Toyota Tundra is going to cost you well over 70 grand. 73,517 bucks for this Toyota Tundra Platinum. Yikes. So obviously the pandemic played a huge role in our hyperinflation that we've seen throughout the last 5 years. I talk about it plenty in the channel, but it's the truth. When you look at MSRPs, they have risen 42% on average across all vehicle manufacturers since 2019. So just in that short duration of time, 42% more is on average what you're spending on your vehicle now, which is absolutely sickening to think about. You can't talk about the price tags of vehicles without talking about current events, right? We always hear about tariffs. We had a lot of dealerships leaning into the whole fear-mongering bit of hurry up and come buy your pre-tariff vehicle, buy your vehicle before those tariffs hit. Man, they were really capitalizing on that. Anything they can to try to trick you into coming into the dealership and buying that vehicle on impulse. We saw that, and unfortunately, a lot of people did fall victim to it. But I think people have caught on. It isn't going to be these 20, 25% stark increases in MSRPs over the next year like a lot of them would try to trick you into believing. Really, a lot of analysts believe that it's going to be a 5 to 7% increase in MSRPs between now and maybe a year and a half from now. So it's going to be a smaller increase. They're going to try to spread out the amount of inflated price tags amongst their entire lineups, not just one or two vehicles. They try to spread it out. The very clear reason as to why vehicles now cost a lot is thanks to vehicles like this. I mean, thanks to the F-150 Lightning, thanks to the whole entire electric vehicle segment, we've seen so many vehicle manufacturers invest tons and tons of money into the development, the research and development, and producing these vehicles. Obviously, many vehicle manufacturers are just kind of following political winds at that point, following the green energy movement. But what are we seeing now? When money is tight, Americans are not buying EVs. These are a great secondary or third vehicle within a household, but they're not buying them. And while they have invested tons and tons of money into them, I'm talking $4.2 billion lost by Ford in particular over the last 2 years. And well, they need to make up for those losses within their EV segment, and they make up for it within their combustion engines. To be clear here, by them not selling their EVs too well, they're hiking up the price tags on all their other vehicles just slightly to make up for those losses. More obvious reasons as to why we're seeing these price increases include the cost of raw materials, the cost of aluminum, the cost of steel. That has gone up substantially over the last 5 years here. Obviously, a part of that equation is thanks to the pandemic, of course, but that is a big piece to consider here. It costs more money to build these vehicles now, comparatively. In addition to that, what are we seeing a huge increase of? That is the cost of labor. And well, currently right now, underneath the current administration, they're trying to bring a lot of that manufacturing back to the United States, where labor costs, let's face it, it costs a lot more comparatively to like Mexico, where they outsource the production of that Tacoma over there. They save over 80% on those labor costs. $2.70 per hour on average is what they pay a Mexican employee down in Mexico, comparatively to about $17 to $18 an hour on average an American out of San Antonio, Texas, where they previously built the Toyota Tacoma. So they're saving on labor costs, what they tried to do, but if they're going to bring it back to the United States, that's going to impact the price tags. To mention, we have unions and the United Auto Workers Group, individuals who are constantly clamoring to get paid more. And I honestly don't blame them. I am a big advocate for keeping jobs within America and paying Americans well. But let's face it, that also comes with, it's a double-edged sword. It's going to make things cost a little bit more. The trick is, can we try to keep vehicles remotely affordable while still keeping it built within the United States? That's the trick. I mean, heck, just this lineup here is a harsh reminder of that. The Ford Bronco Sport is built out of Mexico. The engines for the Ford Ranger in particular, built out of Mexico. So just a lot of outsourcing to try to save money. But it would make a lot more sense if these were priced a little bit more appropriately. They cost too much. Another factor aiding the huge price tags now is, nowadays there's a lot less of incentives to buy new. There's a lot less discounts, there's a lot less incentivized interest rates. They're a little bit harder to come by. And when you do see them, what do you normally see them on? You see them on vehicles that nobody wants to begin with. If it's actually a desirable vehicle, you rarely see a substantial discount combined with an incentivized interest rate. So now, compared to what 5, 6, 7 years ago, there's a huge shortage of incentives to buy new. And do you remember when buying a used vehicle meant saving a ton of money by comparison to buying new? Not anymore, right? You go to any dealership, you see these vehicles with 50, 60, 70,000 miles plus on them, and they're wanting just barely less than its original MSRP, it seems, right? So that right there is a big part of the problem too. I mean, heck, it wasn't all that long ago, maybe 10 years ago, you can go out and buy a solid used vehicle for under $10,000. Not anymore. It's gonna need a lot of work. And a part of that is dealerships have figured it out. They figured out that most Americans cannot come out and buy the new example of this truck here for $90,000 plus. Instead, they're going to try to hike up the price tag of the used example just slightly, enough to make up for their losses in their lack of new vehicle sales. So maybe hike this price tag up just a few $1,000s more to kind of add to their profit margin a bit more. So that we're seeing across the board, across the United States, which is why we've seen a 10 to 15% increase in wholesale value since January 1st of this year. Americans are being bled out. We're suffocating. We're suffocating with all this debt right now. And it's inevitable, right? I mean, many of us, we need a means of transportation, and we really need a means of reliable transportation. And if you're gonna buy a used vehicle, you're really rolling the dice nowadays. Especially when I mentioned the number of repossessions that have taken place. So many of these used examples, used vehicles, are repossessions, meaning if that person before you didn't have the care to make those monthly payments, what makes you think that they had the care to perform the necessary maintenance and service on that vehicle? So there's a chance that you're buying something that really wasn't well maintained in the first place and has a greater chance of breaking down on you. And honestly, you just can't help but feel as though vehicle manufacturers have priced out their target demographics at this point. They've priced out the middle class, really. Since when has it become an upper class thing only to buy a new vehicle? That's a shame. Let's call it what it is. I think a lot of this is by design. They don't want you to pop the hood and work on your vehicle anymore. They want you to take it to the dealership. They need you to take it to the dealership so it can continue to make some sort of revenue for the dealership through their service, right? The maintenance and repair that they're going to perform on it is making them a lot of money. Unless you have a degree in engineering and computer science, you might be able to work on the F-150 Lightning here. You know it's saying something when vehicles like this, 5th generation Toyota 4Runner with an old archaic 4-liter naturally aspirated V6 underneath the hood tied to another old and archaic 5-speed automatic transmission are fetching huge numbers right now on the used market because people love this. They know they can trust it and they know they can work on it too, right? It's not overly complex. It's not overdone and not crammed and stuffed to the gills with technology and creature comforts. This right here is simplistic and, well, it used to be very affordable. But because you can't buy something like this today, they've gotten a little pricey. And goes for the previous generation Toyota Tacoma that sported a 3.5-liter naturally aspirated V6 tied to a 6-speed automatic transmission. It did come with a manual option. People are missing this and they're gravitating back to it, and well, the residual values are proving it. Price increases wouldn't be so bad if wages and salaries actually kept up with it, but that's not the case. The reality is most Americans, truly most Americans, are living paycheck to paycheck. Obviously, some of them are stretching themselves thin to try to drive a flashy car, but they're still living paycheck to paycheck. A big part of the problem is we saw the huge uptick in price tags thanks to the increase in demand and the lack of supply throughout the last 3 to 5 years. But that's no longer the case. Now, supply far exceeds demand. But they didn't reverse it. The pendulum didn't swing the other way with price tags as it should have, right? Now they no longer can warrant these huge price tags, astronomical price tags, but they didn't fix them. They haven't corrected it and brought them down. A couple vehicle manufacturers have dropped their MSRPs, maybe a couple thousand, but that's insufficient based on how much they upticked them. So in summary, you're getting less of a vehicle for more money. That's really what it is. And most Americans are catching on to that fact. And that's why they're holding on to the vehicles longer. They're not trading in every 3 to 5 years. And that is proving to be a huge stress point for so many dealerships. I'll wrap up the video there, guys. I do firmly believe that something has got to give and something has got to give soon. Otherwise, vehicle manufacturers and dealerships alike are going to be in a world of hurt. Dealers need to get creative. They need to get desperate sooner than later. They need to cut their losses to try to move this metal. Otherwise, inventory levels are going to continue to stack up. And as they stack up, that's going to have an adverse ripple effect on the production of these vehicles. Vehicle manufacturers are going to start halting or slowing production of so many other platforms because they're not selling. And that ultimately leads to job layoffs, and just nobody wants to see that, right? So let me know what you think needs to happen in order for there to be some sort of reset that makes sense for Americans to go out and buy a new vehicle. As always, I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to tune into these videos. If you like this type of content, please let me know in the comment section, and please consider liking and subscribing. Your support means a ton, and I promise you, it doesn't go unnoticed. Until next time.